Christ is risen. Hallelujah. Happy Easter. No, I'm serious. Happy Easter, because it's still Easter. As we pick up this story in Luke's gospel, it's still Sunday night. This has been a really long day. It's hard to believe, but this is still the day that the women got up really early in the morning and they went to the tomb and they found the stone rolled back and they saw these two men in gleaming bright clothes who told them, Jesus isn't here, he's been raised. Go and tell the others. And they ran back and they told the others and they told them, remember what he taught us. But the others said, that's nonsense. They didn't remember what he taught them either. Everyone except Peter. Peter ran to the empty tomb to see it for himself. Just a few hours after that, two disciples were traveling to a village called Emmaus when they were joined by another traveler, who turned out, of course, to be Jesus. But they didn't know that at the time, and this traveler walked with them, interpreting the scriptures from Moses to the prophets and how they had been fulfilled that day. And then he had a meal with them. And when he blessed and broke the bread, it was then that they finally recognized him. And then he disappeared. And they hurried back to Jerusalem to tell the others, and they found out that Jesus had also appeared to Simon. And that's where we pick up the story today. They're talking about all these things that have happened when suddenly Jesus appears in the room with them and says, peace be with you. No wonder they were startled. No wonder they were a little bit afraid. They thought they were seeing a ghost. And this lesson is written by Luke. It's from the gospel written by Luke, and maybe it's because Luke was a physician, but he seems especially interested in the resurrection of Jesus' body. He mentions that the disciples believed he was a ghost until they saw him eat. In fact, Jesus ate 2 meals with them that day. You can't eat if you don't have a real body. Luke also emphasizes that Jesus showed the disciples his hands and his feet and invited them to touch him. Now, he doesn't describe this specifically, but as John tells it, he invites them to look at and touch his scars. He's flesh and bone. He's not a spirit. He's not a memory. Jesus is real. Now, here's something interesting. Luke wrote this gospel, and he also wrote Acts. So they are actually considered one work, part 1 and part 2, Luke, Acts. He wrote them about 50 or 60 years after Jesus' death. Luke never actually met Jesus. He never saw him in person, never saw him in his body. And yet, Luke is one of the most important witnesses of all time, sharing the good news. How? Well, let's go back to Jesus' last words to his disciples. After he opened their minds to understand the scriptures, he said to them, "This is what is written, the Christ will suffer and rise from the dead on the 3rd day, and a change of heart and life for the forgiveness of sins must be preached in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things." Jesus' followers took this command seriously. Because of their witness, many more began to follow the way, which is what Christianity was called in the beginning. Now, the term witness, it can mean eyewitness, which would apply to those who saw or experienced Jesus firsthand while he was on earth. But the word witness can also be a verb, an action. Luke, like the Apostle Paul, was one of the 2nd generation of disciples. Luke's call to witness drove him to write, and his writings have been vital to the spread of Christianity. And since that time, generations of witnesses have led to this point, have led us to today, to here and now, and we are the witnesses. And witness, yes, it's a verb, but it's also a noun because it describes who we are. Well, I guess an adjective would describe us. I hope there's no English teachers out there. It's a noun that tells us who we are. You are witnesses, Jesus says. It's not an invitation. It's not a call. It's not even a command. It's a statement of fact. It just is. You are witnesses. All who follow Jesus then and now are the ones who carry the message. We carry it in our words and our thoughts and our actions. Here's what Jesus is saying. Your entire life is a witness to me. Whatever you do it in my name, whether you mean to or not. When you speak, you give witness to the nature of God, whoever it is that you imagine God to be. This may not necessarily come as good news. How many times have I denied Jesus? How many times have I tried to leave him at home for the day or leave him at church for the week? How often have I ignored his voice or thought that one little thing I did or didn't do doesn't matter? The truth is, once we have identified ourselves with Jesus, we are never not giving witness to him. Luke emphasized Jesus' body, his hands, which had healed the sick, his feet, which had walked countless steps to visit the most unlikely and sometimes the most unlikable people. His hands, which fed multitudes of people, his feet, which walked alongside those who had been left alone, his hands and his feet, which had been nailed to the cross, his body, which was about to ascend into heaven. In the 16th century, a woman named Teresa lived in Avila, and she wrote these words: Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks compassion on the world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. Christ has no body now but yours. On Thursday evening, I attended an event here in Lake Geneva, and I got to meet a lot of people who bear witness to Jesus. A lot of people who use their hands to bless and their feet to do good in our community. People who work to heal the sick by offering health care for the uninsured. People who provide clothing for those in need. People who feed the hungry, who give shelter to the weary and the abused. From the Open Arms Free Clinic to Lutheran Social Services, from housing for adults who are in recovery, to treatment, to housing for troubled young women, to day programs for children, from the Milwaukee Soup Kitchen to the Walworth County Food Pantry, which in turn provides food for our own community meal here at Emmanuel. The feet and the hands of Jesus are at work in our community. And if you would like to help, if that's how your feet and hands would like to move, all of these organizations are looking for volunteers. They need more feet, more hands. So I want you now to look at your hands. What do your hands do? These are Jesus' hands. This is how those who do not know Jesus will learn from us about who he is. Consider your words. What does your voice say? Do you speak the truth in love? What do your eyes see? What would happen if we were to put on Jesus glasses, to see the world through his eyes with compassion and equal and unconditional love for all? Christ has no body now but yours. If it were up to us, we would come up with all kinds of reasons why we're not qualified, why we're not ready, why somebody else could do it better, why Jesus really doesn't want somebody like me representing him. But this is the good news. Jesus doesn't ask. He doesn't wait for us to be ready. He's not waiting for us to agree. It's not optional. It's not something we can do sometimes and decide to take a day off once in a while. We are witnesses. So what will your witness be?